Okay, well, I just turned on, excited to really share this information with teams and families who've been affected by Alzheimer's. And Chris, I just really appreciate you making the time. So I had mentioned I worked in Canada in the care industry, helping people who are living with Alzheimer's and their families, and was so lucky to have come across your documentary. And I found it to be one of the most powerful in the care industry. So thank you for letting us talk to you. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me. Thanks for
Yeah.
connecting with me.
I really found your perspective and the way you approached the footage, and I felt like I knew your family, and that's a special, you accomplished something special. So I am not an interviewer, I just work in the care industry, but I really did want to hear and your perspective and thoughts. And I guess my first thing I was wondering is what made you pursue doing the documentary, and kind of, I think from my memory of the documentary, how old were you when things started to change for your dad?
So this goes back quite a ways. It was really in the late 90s. I was in my late 20s
Mm.
when my family started to notice little things, little changes in him. Like every family that goes through this knows this story. And at first, you don't. We had heard of the word Alzheimer's. We didn't know anybody who had it. We only knew what we heard in the news. So, but my dad was like forgetting people's names and messing up at work and stuff like that. So, of course, like a typical family, we were just like, "Oh, come on, Dad! Like, aren't you listening?" or something like that, because he was only 57.
Mm.
Actually, when he started to things started to happen, he was probably only like 55, 56. And of
Wow,
course,
okay.
we're like, okay, we had heard of Alzheimer's, but we thought it was just for older people. So I
Sure.
think it came to when my mother was at the doctor's office and she was probably there for her own appointment and saw one of the posters on the wall saying, the top signs of Alzheimer's, and she just checked them all off. And so
Mm.
we started going through all the testing and everything. Again, I'm sure everyone has done
Yeah.
the same thing. So when I started documenting him, wasn't actually at the beginning of his diagnosis. It was probably a couple of years into it. It was probably when he was
Okay.
almost 60, probably like 59 or 60. So he'd already been a couple of years into it. But really, what it was I just had decided to help out. So basically, I was living in Toronto. They were living in a small cottage community, and my mother had like no support whatsoever.
Mm.
There was no Alzheimer's around, no Alzheimer's Association or
Yeah.
society around. So she was doing everything by herself. So at first, I just took it upon myself to just move there and help out, and that was my first idea. But I had a video camera, so I thought I'm going to start to just film. And really, it didn't start off like I'm making this documentary. It was just like it gave me something to do as well. It gave me, time with my dad, and I enjoyed filming. I had always filmed my whole life and kind of worked in film and television before that. So that's what I just started doing. I just started documenting our daily whatever we did on a daily basis. It wasn't really until it really even maybe a year into it that I realized I had a lot of footage and I should probably do something with it. So that's kind of how it started.
Okay. Well, I was there, the version that I've come across and is on YouTube, and it's called Forgetful, Not Forgotten.
Yes.
And it shows about a 30-minute in length. Was there a longer version of it?
Yeah, there's two versions. That's actually the shorter version.
Okay.
There's what's called I guess a television version, which is a 58-minute version. The 30-minute version that's on YouTube is the main part of it.
Mhm.
The 58-minute version goes into nothing different. I talk more with his sister and a friend of his and stuff like that. But we had two different versions, and I wanted a 30-minute version, and then actually that version has won quite a few awards. But I just wanted something a little bit tighter, so that's why that one's that's really the main one now.
Okay. And it's a beautiful length with, you know, the world and care teams and families and support groups, and using it as a kind of a launching pad to have guided discussion, which you said that's how it was kind of being used in Canada anyway, right? And I think you said Colorado and Boston, you did a little bit with it here already.
Yeah, so when the film was finished, they played on TV in Canada a couple times. I was lucky enough to sort of travel most of Canada. There's something like here in Canada, it's called the Alzheimer's Society, and there's something like 59 or 60 chapters right across Canada. And I almost
Mhm.
visited, in a 2-year span, I almost went to every single chapter. Um,
Wow.
so showing the film and talking about it afterwards. And yeah, I was brought down to another connection, great connection I had in Boston, and I showed it at a theater there and did a little Q&A afterwards. And it actually went to some film festivals, went to one in Colorado Springs back in 2010, I believe it was, and actually won Best International Film. And
Oh,
I went to that film festival too, because it was the first film festival that I'd ever been to where my film was in it, and they invited me down. So I went to Colorado Springs, and I ended up winning Best International Film. And actually,
wow.
I was saying the trophy's here somewhere. I have the trophy somewhere.
That's so exciting. That is so neat. I swear to get back on topic here, but have you seen very recently came out The Father?
No, I do want to see that. I have not checked it out, but interesting enough, I'm going to be on a podcast, and I'm supposed to be talking about dementia and media, and what, watching movies, and are they doing it
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So that's another topic that I've talked about a lot. So I do want to
Yeah.
see that. Yeah,
Yeah, there's feels like there's a lot of different movies out in the, just
yeah,
mainstream world right now, and it really was captivating. And he did an amazing portrayal of very.
yeah. I often say that they're doing a lot better now than, like, I remember back in 1999 when my family tried to learn, and there was like basically nothing.
I
Like,
know.
here, read this book or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, there was some movies that people just loved, like The Notebook, right? It's a great love story. I don't know if it's a great Alzheimer's film.
If
Uh,
it's all accurate the way it's portrayed,
yeah,
and
I don't know if you can actually capture everything in a film. Like, even in Forgetful Not Forgotten, and even the films that I've made, I always tell people, like, this is just one story about Alzheimer's, right? Like, it's not going to tell you everything. And
yeah,
people would often ask me and say, "Oh, you didn't talk about wandering, and you didn't talk." And I'm like, I wasn't making like a how-to. I was just
yeah,
documenting my family, and what happened, and I didn't want to,
yeah.
start
Your
saying,
journey.
"This is Alzheimer's, and this is what you do." But anyways, I know we're getting off topic, but
No, it's good stuff.
I think today they're doing a lot better job in the mainstream media. These movies like The
Yeah.
Father and other ones, and books and stuff. I think they're doing a lot more. There's definitely a lot more awareness.
Yes, more people talking, less stigma for sure. And
Yeah,
I think too, I'm in my 40s, and we know now we have biomarkers, 20 years before anything is changing, and a lot of focus on brain health and things we want to try to be aware of. But if you don't mind, I was really going to pull up like 1 minute and 30 seconds of the beginning of the documentary just to give people a flavor. And I know you made it, but you did such a great job. To me, and by background, I'm a recreational therapist, and I was like, you guys did so great at letting your dad just kind of do what he always did and getting him out on the golf course. But anyway, I'm going to try to pull this up here. And so, yeah, Donna, this is who's also joined to listen in. And as viewers, as we do get this onto LinkedIn and other locations, this is where you can find Forgetful, Not Forgotten by Chris Wynn. I'm just going to pull up the first kind of minute and a half to set the tone.
I can remember my dad's golf swing, always relaxed and slow, kind of like his approach to life. He was always fun. People just loved being around him. And as I grew up, I wanted to be just like him. I still do. See where the ball is? Ball's over there.
Right there.
No. Look down.
Here.
Look down.
Down.
See where the ball is?
Oh, yes. Okay, I see it now. Yeah.
Stand over here. Come stand
Okay.
over here.
Yeah.
Come here.
Yeah.
And the big hole is up that way.
Okay.
So you gotta turn. Like that. Okay?
Yeah.
You can hit the ball.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
That's it. Hey! Woo, you almost hit the pin. That's good.
I'm going home.
Why are you going home? That was a good swing.
Yeah.
You feel good?
Do I ever?
Excellent.
My goodness.
I loved throughout the documentary where you really still got him out on the golf course. That seemed very defining for him. Was that?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because I think when I moved there, and it was my mother, she was the primary caregiver, and I had moved in just to sort of help her. And I guess it's something that I sort of became like the secondary caregiver, where my job was to, when you say caregiver, it's like people think, oh, you're doing caregiving jobs. And really, what was I doing? I was getting him out of the house. I was giving my mother a break, which is still considered caregiving. So it was sort of my job to like just keep him active. And it's like, oh yeah, let's go. He was a big golfer. And amazing, like, in that scene, he didn't know where the ball was, but as soon as you put the club in his hand, he knew exactly how to grip it. Like it's that, I forget, his mind clicked into the touch of it. So yeah, I mean, it was just about keeping him occupied, keeping him busy, talking to him, going for walks, but really just giving my mother a break was the main job.
But you could see his face light up, and throughout the footage that, one of the things I wrote down too was he seemed to just have such a jovial, fun-loving, like well-loved, fun guy by a million people. Would you say that stayed through a lot of the disease? I know he had some, it sounded like you saw glimmers of that personality the whole way through.
Yeah, it was there, and it's interesting because a lot of what I hear, a lot of stories is people get into denial about having the disease and they don't want to talk about it, and that was not him at all. I don't know if he knew what Alzheimer's was, but he told people right away that he had Alzheimer's. He had no problem telling people, and he was definitely, he was always sort of had a great spirit about him, and he always wanted to, talk, even though when he had problems. That was the other thing that we didn't realize, that no one told us, that him, after a while, getting sentences out would be difficult. So it was really hard for him because he loved to talk, and then he would lose his language or couldn't find words, and he'd struggle to find words. And it was tough for me too. Like, I didn't know the first thing about you. When you watch the film, a lot of people have watched the film and then criticized me, saying, you're asking your dad too many questions. I'm like, well, no one told me any different. And, we learned on our own, and, we didn't have all the stuff that they have today. So yes, I asked him, I watch it now and I'm like, oh, Chris, shut up. Stop asking him so many questions. But at the time I didn't know. It was just, it was like, was I in denial? Did I not believe he didn't know a name or something? I don't know. It's hard to tell, but yeah, he had a great spirit, and he loved to, talk to people. He still loved parties and going out and stuff like that. And, and he laid it all on the table. He would say some, inappropriate stuff, and it was funny. I mean, it embarrassed my mom a lot, but I thought it was hilarious.
Well, and I appreciate watching some of the footage, which again, I think that 30-minute mark is just so nice for teams to use. He didn't get upset. And to me, that's one of your first indicators. I don't think there's a right and a wrong. Family members have emotional needs and curiosity. And if you were upsetting them and rattling them, I could see, but that makes me sad people criticized you. I think he went along with it, enjoyed your guidance. And I think particularly when you guys were looking at some family photos, and then when the light would go off and he would go, oh yeah. He was excited when you kind of brought him to who it really was. So I was going to pull up another quick little clip. I only have a couple more I was going to show throughout, and then just prompt some more discussion from there. And even though there was a time I loved his connection to the family dog, Hadley.
Yeah.
Was that just like...
He often joked that Hadley had Alzheimer's. He'd always say, oh, I think the dog has Alzheimer's. But yeah, because the dog didn't judge him. The dog didn't make him eat his breakfast. The dog didn't make him have showers. The dog was just there to listen, or, to be with him. So, and the dog was old. So it was tough because my mom and I were like, oh my God, I hope the dog holds on. And he did. After, I say it in the film, but after my dad went into the long-term care, it was like a week later, the dog died.
It's like he knew it needed to wait.
Yeah, exactly. So, Yeah, he had a great relationship, and he had a great relationship with. I mean, unfortunately, he would have had. He never met my kids. I have two kids now, but he died before they were born. But he did get to meet a couple of his grandkids. My brother had a couple daughters, and he loved kids. Like and at parties, he was always off playing with the kids and doing stuff with the kids. And maybe because adult conversation was too much.
Yeah.
It is, at a party when there's so many conversations going around, like I find it hard to follow. So some with dementia or Alzheimer's. So he would always veer off to what are the kids doing, So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that there was a couple of clips in there where he had the self-awareness. He had Alzheimer's. So how long do you feel he kind of kept that he had the self-awareness? I have this disease.
Yeah, it went for a while. It was interesting. He still would watch at night. He watched the news a lot. And at night, whenever like the word Alzheimer's would come up, he'd come running to us upstairs. Hey, they're going to talk about Alzheimer's. And in the beginning, in fact, he was interested in any kind of, test drug or anything. I think he thought that, he could beat it at the beginning. And I think even, I hate to say it, but I think some specialists even said, "Oh, you're so young, John. They'll probably have something, before it gets too worse." And that was 1999, and there's still nothing. So, he was very aware of something happening. And I think there was some depression for sure. There were some, tough times, and I think he was more mad at himself than mad at us or anything. I mean, I don't know if he ever really got mad at my mom. She never says he did, and I wasn't. If he did, I wasn't really there. But he still went through there were so many different stages. It's incredible how they changed so much. But yeah, he was definitely aware that there was something going on in the early stages, maybe midway through, or definitely to the later stages. Then it was just he'd forgotten about it.
What is my math? I can't. Was his journey approximately 7 years?
Yeah, 7, 8-ish. I mean, who really knows exactly when he developed it? But diagnosed 57, passed away at 65. So
I again loved seeing in the documentary that you guys were able to do his 65th birthday.
Yeah, that was the first time after he went into the long-term care that we brought him back to the house. So I think it was a bit of a shock for a lot of people, because as you know, or as a lot of people know, that you have family and friends that kind of stop coming around, right? Because they don't understand. So bringing him back to the house is the first time a lot of people had seen him in a while. And so I think it was a shock for a lot of people.
How did that go for him? And was it seemingly like there was more benefit and positive, or did he seem kind of confused and stressed, or a little bit of both?
Well, at that point, see, we had brought him back to the house a couple other times, and he kind of recognized the house, but he never, I think by that time he thought that the residence now, the long-term care, was his home, because we were there for so long. But at his 65th, he wasn't really saying much, and he was liking another thing when you mentioned the dog. He also was a big fan of music too, and we used music a lot. So there was a lot of music that day, and from a lot of his friends playing music. So he was pretty happy.
Some knee tapping. Did you sing in this documentary? Was that you?
Yeah, I wrote the song that I play at the 65th, and it also plays in the credit too. I wrote that song.
How cool. I thought maybe, but I wasn't sure. Well,
it's really the only song I've ever written.
It's good. It's good. That's fantastic. It's fun to have a hobby, and you add some talent. My husband's just started being in a band, and I think it gives a lot of purpose and meaning and camaraderie, and lets you think about work a little. So I was going to pull up, I'm trying to be all fancy with moving around here on, it might not be exactly accurate, but where there was starting to be the change a little bit, and he was having some of the sadness. So I wanted to pull it up to 345 here.
This story begins 6 years ago when I decided to move back to Quebec. At that point, my parents were both retired and living in Denani, a small cottage community about an hour north of Montreal.
There, you know where we are?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are we?
Number one.
Moving closer to my parents meant I could do a lot more with my dad. This was a special time for me,
Having
but also frustrating because the closer I got to him, the more I wondered if I would get the disease.
with a big, huge
Tree.
tree.
Well, where are we right now?
Where
What is this place?
yeah, it's we're in.
We just walked through the path
Yes, we did.
from Neil Road,
Yes,
and now,
and now we're going
no, we're right here. But what is this? This big, look at that.
the golf course.
You betcha.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Do you remember playing golf here?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I'm loving it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then Alzheimer's stopped me.
From playing.
So again, that's a interesting time in the journey that he could articulate and knew that, you know, and then later in the documentary, when he does move into the care setting, I think you stated something that he almost seemed happier when he had progressed a little bit and didn't have that awareness. Would you say, or?
Yeah, I think my brother would say, I have an older brother and an older sister, and my brother would say, towards the end, when he lived in long-term care for about 1.5 years and he went down pretty quick, but he got to a point where he was in a wheelchair and he was just kind of mumbling, and again, a lot of families probably, or if they're at this stage, they understand what I'm talking about. But my brother would say that I think he's happy in his own head right now, because we'd walk into his room and he'd be like humming away or something, and we kind of convinced ourselves of that, like, yeah, you know what, he might be happy, like maybe he is happy. And it's funny because people, I've been interviewed so many times, and I get interviewed a lot with from people that haven't been through it or don't know anything about it. Like, for example, mainstream media. I've been on radio, TV and stuff.
Yeah.
They love to ask me the questions that you can probably guess, and one of them is always like, when did your father not know you were his son, or something like that? And so I always my answer is, it didn't matter. Like, if I went into to visit him at the residence and he was happy, then it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if he knows I'm his son or not. If he can think I'm a friend, or he can think I'm there to help, care for him. But at that point, it shouldn't matter to you. And I think families need to realize when I think about this disease, I think about one word, and it's called acceptance. It's accepting who they are. You can remember them for how they were before, but it's not going to help them if you're like I am in the movie, asking him lots of questions, or just saying, oh, he used to be like this. Like, you can talk to friends like that, but for him, it's like, I just have to accept who he is at this moment. And this disease is horrible, but it's also how you take it and how you deal with it as well.
I thought your family did so many beautiful things. By recreation background, you brought him was it Timmy Hortons, or you'd bring his coffee, or you guys always had the music going, and it just seemed like a nice jovial banter,
Yeah. Again, music was huge to him. Like, when I talked about the golf club before, it was the same with music. Like, you'd put on a song by Johnny Cash and he could sing along to it, like, no problem. Unfortunately, I couldn't use any of that stuff in the movie because I didn't have the rights to any of those songs. So that was a bit difficult because I had so much footage of him singing to songs. But again, these are all very popular country music songs, and I didn't have the rights. But yeah, music was a way to distract. And I'm sure, you've dealt with this, or people have dealt with this, is when he was getting off track and he was he was getting frustrated with himself. It was about distraction. Like, okay, let's try to get him not thinking about this and frustrating. So let's put on a song or get the dog or something like that to try to distract.
You guys had some good interactions with Hadley too. So if you don't mind, I was going to show another clip around. Is that okay? I was going to pull up just a few. I think it lets the people see kind of a flavor. And I had us at 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing a couple of times recently again and loved every minute of it.
Unfortunately, Zoom is not the best for videos to.
I know, I'm trying. We've come a long way. Donna, who's joined us last year, we had to move to teaching only through Zoom and getting better at it. But yes,
Yeah,
Great.
it's so just in the last year I've used Zoom so much, but showing videos I've realized I can't believe Zoom hasn't fixed this. But anyways,
I know. Can you hear it okay when I'm
no,
playing?
I can hear it. The audio is great. I just always know that the video jumps. But don't
Yeah,
worry, anybody who's going to watch this on YouTube, it doesn't play like this when you watch it on YouTube.
there you go. Yes. Here. So I just wanted to show this clip where he was starting to have some change in disposition, but how much, comfort the dog brought.
So it was hard.
Even though our family has had many pets, Hadley and my father were best buddies. Hadley didn't make him eat all his porridge or ask him any questions, and sometimes Hadley was the only one he could confide in.
Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. See you in my dream.
Could go days, sometimes weeks, that he wouldn't talk to me. Just, pretend I wasn't there. But I got used to it in a way, but it was hard to deal with. But I think now it might have been part of a depression that he was going through, and I didn't realize it. Because I know that that's part of the Alzheimer's stages, or depression.
What's going on, John? I said, what's going on? Why'd you come down here?
Whatever you want, kill myself.
You want to what?
Kill myself.
Are you joking?
I feel like the dog knew. Don't you feel like the instinctual? He wanted that connection with pets and people.
Yeah.
He needed him.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of, when you're talking about what did he know or what did he like. It was a lot of times he would say things that either was like surprising, and that was very surprising to me, and that was like a morning where he just kind of got up and went downstairs and didn't say anything, and obviously something triggered him. But yeah, the dog was a great way to, it took him a while, but the dog started licking his hands, and then he petted that dog, and then finally, and I just stood back and I didn't do anything, and I didn't say anything, because I'm like, there's nothing really to help here, but if the dog's helping, then I'm going to let that go. And then after a while he said, let's go have some breakfast. Okay.
And you let him feel what he needed to feel, right? Could knowing you're stuck in your body and knowing these things are changing, that self-awareness.
Yeah.
I'm glad your family let him talk about the things, even when it wasn't all, fun and games. Now, at that point, would you say, was he verbal and communicating, or were you starting to see changes where he was not talking as much?
He was definitely trying to talk. He was always trying to talk, but he would get caught on, he could put a sentence together, but then he would get caught on a word, or he always tried to remember people's names. He would think about names for a long time. And it was like playing charades with someone. It's just like, are you talking about Jim? Is it Bob? Is it, so we were trying to help him out, but also not trying. Again, when I go back, there's a few scenes when I'm asking him a few questions, like there's looking at pictures of his kids, and I'm like, who's this? Who's that? And now when I watch it, and I didn't think about it at the time, it's like, I'm just confusing him. I'm just asking too many questions, and I think that's what families or people need to realize. That,
you don't need to beat yourself up. I think I remember that scene you're on talking about pictures on the mantle. And again, that sort of makes me disappointed that people criticized you, because again, I think there's one right way. And again, he didn't seem distressed.
Yeah.
That's where we get our cues, I think, a little bit, when some families might try to argue, or they might try to, reorient. No, Dad, but I think.
But it's also, it's the internet, right? So I have to be to put something out there like this, and people are gonna they're going to criticize it. So
In this day and age, yes, I couldn't even imagine, because people do have strong opinions, and
yeah.
I can only imagine. But again, this is just such great footage for teams to really, it just made me think so much and want to change the way we do things. I was asking in my notes here, I was wondering, do you have any suggestions about helping get him settled to the care home? I know that was really hard for your mom to make that decision. And, was my other question about that was, what was most important to you guys about the care he received there?
Right. So the moving him to long-term care really came up at a point where it was more came about my mother. It was just like, you know what? It was like, it felt like, we need to there's only so much, I think it's hard to say, but there's only so much I could do for my dad. He's getting worse, right? And my mother was not looking after herself like every primary caregiver doesn't, or doesn't think about themselves because they're too busy. And so we just thought, and she thought it too. It's just like, it was time, because she'd had enough, basically. So it's horrible to say, but that's what it is. But luckily, the town where they lived, there was only a couple choices, and he went into one where my mother knew a lot of the staff and stuff like that. And I think the first day we even had maybe a friend waiting there to say hi,
Nice.
So he could recognize face. And, at first he didn't really understand. And there was his first night, overnight, it was tough, but we just had to like power through and kind of like, you can't take him back or whatever. And it was tough to do, but and here's the other thing was where he went into, they had only dealt with people in their 80s with
So he was much younger.
Didn't know anyone that was 60. I guess he was 63 at the time. So they really didn't know how to handle him. So I felt like I was training them. I just felt like I said to them, if you have a smile on your face and say, "Hi, John, how are you?" Then he's probably going to have a good time. He's probably going to be nice. If you're having a shitty day, then sorry for my language, but
That's okay.
he's going to be in a bad mood. So I know it's because they read, body language and your face and stuff like that. So I try to tell everyone who was working there, just, here's what he likes. He likes music, and some of them are great. There was some that didn't want to deal with him because, he might have I think he definitely got aggressive towards a couple of them, but, he got aggressive, but I don't blame him. Like, who's this person trying to change me? And who's this person, doing this? And where's my wife? And all this other stuff. So it was a learning curve. And even when another question, I might have gotten is, I guess when he went into long-term care, it was just like, such a relief. And it's like, no, it was so many other things that happened that we had to go through. And my mother questioned, should I have done it? He was so young. Should I put him in? Should I keep, you question it, but you realize again that, it was the right decision. And it was going to happen. What happened?
You talked about that in the movie too, that it's more about the caregiver at that point, right? And there's so many times the chronic stress for your mom starts to take a toll on her, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, it did. She had, so here's the thing. When you watch Forgetful Not Forgotten, obviously I was filming, but I was also a son, right? So I had to, it's not like, I can just, if something's come up, I got to go get my camera. Like, so my mother did have what was, she thought was a heart attack, where she felt like all this pain, and we rushed her to the hospital. Luckily, I think, I don't know if I was living there at the time or not, because I ended up moving out and just coming up on weekends, but luckily I was there, and with my dad, we rushed her to the hospital, and my dad had no idea. This is before he went into long-term care.
Yeah.
No idea what was going on. She was having like a stress attack, and she had to spend like 2 weeks in the hospital, just like, okay, you need to relax. And I had to live with him. And so I think that was a real wake-up call. But again, that was a moment when I just, had to be a son and not, I guess.
Yeah, I thought you guys did a beautiful job with making joy for him when he was there. So I was going to pull up another clip towards the end, where you were like the activity staff. Did they have a good team there that would spend some time with? Did he like going out to any of the group stuff for recreation, or more kept to himself?
So the other thing was, I don't know how much activity stuff was actually going on. They had an activities room. My mother actually ended up paying someone, a private caregiver, to go in just to spend time with him as well. When there was music, and a lot of the guys that played music for him that he knew, they would come and play at the residence as well, and he was very happy to see them. We tried to, get it again. The residence was nice. There's a nice place outside that we could go and walk and stuff like that. We brought the dog in once, maybe before he died. The dog, I can't remember, but yeah, between my brother and sister and I, we tried, and my mother had some brothers and sisters, but we tried to be in there as much as we could because we
Made
were
like a schedule or something that everybody
Yeah.
could turn?
Yeah, again, looking back, like this is a small residence. I'm sure it's changed a lot now, but I don't know what it was, but I don't know if they had a lot going on.
Yeah. I just loved watching kind of your families, again, Donna's nursing, I'm recreation, but we know both are important, but where my mom's at right now, I don't know the last time my mom does not have Alzheimer's, but there's some cognitive changes as she's gotten older. And I don't know how long since she's seen water and had a shower, but I don't care. I've signed all the waivers in my mind. It's about like dignity, there's no odor and she's not embarrassing herself and has self-awareness to kind of tidy up a little. Different families feel differently.
Yeah.
When they place their loved one, we want them in a new outfit every single day. We want to be sure, we want proof he's going to 4 activities a day. It felt like your family just you were just kind of going along with it and you didn't have these rigid expectations. You just wanted to know he was being cared for kindly and supported, and you were teaching the staff.
Yeah. It was everything was a learning curve from the time he got the disease right until he passed away. We learned, and you know what? How we really learned, and this is what I tell a lot of people: you learn from other families. You learn from other people that have gone through it. Like there's a lot of fictional movies and a lot of great documentaries and a lot of great books, but going to actually hearing from connecting with families, and maybe not even at a support group, but just like on the side, and just hearing from them. And that's what I've tried to do, is pass on knowledge to other families as well.
I think it's fantastic. You keep kind of sharing the little nuggets of wisdom and little tips at work. And you said the area you guys were in, there really wasn't support groups or education stuff at the time, right?
Yeah, I don't even know how much. I mean, this is very cottage or rural community, so there wasn't a lot there for my mom. I think she went to a couple support groups now and then, but I don't know how much they helped.
Yeah.
I went with her once, but I didn't really say anything because I think I was really in my early 30s, and everyone's like, "What is a 30-year-old doing here?" So.
Yeah, exactly. But you guys really were there, and this was some of the clip I really enjoyed when you guys were dancing with him. And
Father and son, we were friends.
Mm-hmm. You got it. Watch my feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a good life together, so I can't take that away. It was a great time. When I look back, I wouldn't want to have done it any other way. I mean, at the time learning of Alzheimer's, I thought, oh no, but it was just what was made for us, I suppose. It was in the plan. Who knows? I just didn't like it at the beginning, and I didn't like it at the end, but at least, you learned a lot. I really did learn a lot.
We all agreed that, you did an amazing job caring for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can't abandon anybody, and he was the love of my life, so, had to deal with it, and I knew I had to. As I say, we had a great life together, and I don't regret any of it.
this is your song, right, Chris? Look how intently he's watching you.
Yeah, yeah,
What a treat that you were able to, you wrote that song and just for him.
yeah. I wrote it. Can't remember. It was during the process of making the film. I mean, what was actually really tough was after he passed away was when sort of I got funding and everything for the film. So I basically had to go. It was probably like a month after he passed away. I got all this funding and all this like broadcaster on board. So I had to start going back over the last like 5-6 years of footage to try to find all the best stuff. So I kind of like relived the disease after he passed away. Which was tough, but I knew it had to be done, and my family supported. They knew that, like I said, really hearing personal stories is something that's huge. And also something I wanted to show as well is like a whole family. I know a lot of families get torn apart, and what I said before is like friends and family stop coming around and stop asking questions, and it's really tough on a family. So I think a family coming together was important to show, and to show younger caregivers, kids, children, to say this isn't a time to like stop visiting. This isn't a time to, this is a time where you really need to step up. And again, if your loved one doesn't know who you are, like that's your problem. That's not their problem. Like I often say this to people, like I meet people now and they like, oh, my father or my mother has Alzheimer's, and they'll talk gibberish and they don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, well, they know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about.
That's right.
In their head, they're right. And so you should think of like that. You shouldn't think about, oh, they're just making stuff up, but they're not right. Well, what's right? In their head, they're right. So treat them like that, treat them with respect and accept for who they are.
Yeah, you guys, I think you did, there's a couple of phrases they use here, joining the journey, or you just go along with it. But yeah, you could, without the words making sense, you could see the comfort or the peace and the contentment, as he was watching you with pride. Well, I just so appreciate people getting a chance to see your face, and that you put together this beautiful footage of your family's journey. And I said, I always felt like I kind of like knew your family just because you and your beautiful girlfriend who became your wife, and he was so excited about that.
Yeah, luckily, I mean, my wife Kim kind of came into this, right when we started dating, and so she got to know him, but only really the last couple of years. So I think it was again, I mean, I wish he could have met my kids, but at least he got to meet her, and he was very happy that things were, I think he was always worried about me, maybe, I don't know. So
yeah, because he was like, yeah, he was so excited about that announcement that you were moving in, I think. Well, I just really appreciate, again, we're just feel very lucky that you are so gracious that there would be no copyright or infringement issues if anyone wanted to access this through YouTube to help their journey with families or staff. You're open to that and comfortable with people?
Yeah, I mean, people have used it for many reasons, so I don't, that's what it's there for. That's what it was made for. So it's all about sharing stories. So yeah, use it. People can use it any way they want. And it's amazing to connect with you, because sometimes I don't hear, nothing happens with the film for years, and then suddenly someone will connect with me and say, oh, I want to connect with you. And so I'm happy to talk about it anytime.
And then you find a groupie from the States who's like, I gotta find that guy. I just thought that was such a beautiful, so I thank you. I don't know what I did here. Okay. Clicking around on Zoom wrong. So with that, I just, so it's Forgetful, Not Forgotten. And you said maybe we might get lucky to see, not sure if it's going to be a while, but there's a second documentary that.
Yeah, I made a second documentary. So before, when I was talking about my travels across Canada and a little bit in the States, I was meeting more families, and so here's the thing. I've made a second documentary called Much Too Young, about young caregivers and Alzheimer's dementia. It follows 4 families over 2 years. And these are kids a lot younger than I was, like teenagers and stuff. And it really focuses on them and how it affects them, because I didn't really talk about that a lot in Forgetful, Not Forgotten, how it sort of changed my life.
Yeah.
So, but the difference is that Forgetful, Not Forgotten was a film that I kind of had to make, and Much Too Young was a film that I wanted to make. So, and it's I had a whole crew, and it was different, where Forgetful, Not Forgotten was me and a camera, where this was like, a lot more, professionally made. But unfortunately right now, if you search Much Too Young, the film on YouTube. You can see a trailer for it. There's just like a 2.5 minute trailer anybody can watch. But unfortunately, right now it's been on TV here in Canada, but it's online, but only in Canada. So we have to wait for those rights to change, and then when
Okay.
it does, hopefully, I don't know, hopefully maybe Netflix will pick it up or something.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out for it. Well, I feel really lucky that you took this much time to talk with us, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording, and then just really quickly, I'm gonna see if Donna wants to ask you anything, but this has been a real treat, and I don't know how to stop recording. There it is up there.